Never thought it would be so hard. I grew up without a scar, just living my life with no big worries. And I've always known what I want, just didn't know what came along. Finding myself much less happy. Back in the days I used to dream about one day a life so amazing, not everyone judging me. Don't wanna care about them, though it hurts so bad. I wanna stay wide open, 'cause if I shut down, it just gives them right. I wanna stay wide open.
Bonjour à tous. Hello everybody. Welcome to my channel. I'm really happy that you are here. Today I would like to show you the beloved palace of Napoleon I and his journey from an artillery officer to first consul of the Republic, then the first emperor of France. Let's go. Allons-y.
Lock my door and stay inside or wait until
Can you guess which palace was favored by Napoleon?
I have nothing
It is Le Château de Fontainebleau, located about 60 kilometers from Paris. It is named Château, but it should be correctly translated to palace in English because it has been one of the main royal residences since the château was built in the 12th century. Before talking about the Château de Fontainebleau, I'd like to give you a brief summary of Napoleon Bonaparte's life.
on me. Don't wanna care about them, though it hurts so bad.
Napoleon Bonaparte was born Napoleone Bonaparte on the island of Corsica on August 15, 1769, the year the French seized and colonized Corsica. By the time he was 9, his father placed him and his brother Joseph in a French military school. His first years were bitter. He had to learn French, which was a foreign language to the young Corsican. Although he became fluent in French, he spoke with a distinctive Corsican accent. Oh, Corsican is an Italo-Dalmatian language that has been spoken in Corsica. He studied mathematics, Latin, German, history, geography, and France's military victories more than their defeats.
Don't wanna care about
The school's best students were selected for training as engineers and artillery experts. Napoleon's qualities were immediately apparent, and he was sent to be an artillery officer. He was surrounded by students from the rich aristocracy who had titles and cultural upbringing. He was a foreigner from a French island. He was the only Corsican. On his island, he was part of the upper class. In France, he was at the bottom. His best friends were his books. He studied and read voraciously. He was brilliant in mathematics and was an avid reader about strategy and naval and land tactics. He was promoted to study at the Royal Military School in Paris. He graduated high in his class as an officer. Upon graduating in September 1785, Bonaparte was commissioned as second lieutenant to Valence and Auxonne until after the outbreak of the French Revolution in 1789. Being a pro-republican, Napoleon rose to prominence during the French Revolution and the First Republic. He became one of the youngest generals in French history. On December 22, 1793, he was promoted from colonel to brigadier general at the age of 24. In October 1795, having been given the command in defense of the convention in the Tuileries Palace by Paul Barras, a leader of the National Convention, Bonaparte defeated the Royalists successfully and removed immediate threat from the Royalists. The defeat of the Royalist insurrection earned Bonaparte sudden fame, wealth, and the patronage of the new government, the Directory. Bonaparte was promoted to commander of the interior. Within weeks, he was romantically involved with Josephine de Beauharnais, the widow of Alexandre, Viscount of Beauharnais and former mistress of Paul Barras. The couple married on March 9, 1796 in a civil ceremony. Although he was born Napoleone Bonaparte, Napoleon began styling himself Napoleon Bonaparte. The first known record of him signing his name as Bonaparte instead of Bonaparte was at the age of 27 in 1796. He fought more than 30 battles between 1793 and 1799 until he returned to Paris from Egypt without a specific order, which turned out to be a great decision. Upon his return to Paris, he drew an alliance with a few prominent politicians, and together they overthrew the Directory by a coup d'etat on November 9, 1799. Napoleon became first consul for 10 years, with the two consuls appointed by him who had consultative voices only. In reality, he established a dictatorship. Launching a constitutional referendum concerning the establishment of the French Empire in November 1804, Napoleon was elected as Emperor of the French by a nearly unanimous tally. He took control of the government following the revolution and crowned himself emperor. When he became Emperor Napoleon I, he commended a project to restore the Palace of Fontainebleau after the French Revolution. The revolution has stripped it of its windows, its mirrors, and lead roofing. Inside, the chateau had been emptied of its furniture that were auctioned during the revolution. The coronation of Napoleon I has taken place on December 2, 1804, and Pope Pius VII was coming to Paris to officiate the coronation. In 19 days, all the new furniture conveyed from Paris to Fontainebleau and refurbished 40 state apartments and 200 suites. On November 25, 1804, Napoleon I welcomed Pope Pius VII on his way from Rome to Paris, and together they made Fontainebleau the site of the coronation by repeating the ceremony. Napoleon I completely refurbished the palace, with his throne there ensured a place in the long history of France. The Francis I Gallery, which became the Emperor's Gallery, was decorated with busts of ancient or contemporary illustrious political leaders from Alexander the Great to George Washington. The chateau being restored to its former glory, Napoleon I's visits and stays became more frequent. Like the kings of the Ancien Régime, Napoleon had installed his state apartment on the first floor of the palace. In November 1809, the emperor announced his official divorce from Josephine at the Tuileries Palace. The following year, during his visit to the Fontainebleau with the new Empress Marie-Louise, great-niece of Marie Antoinette, her pregnancy was announced in the throne room. Pope Pius VII was arrested and his lands seized from June 19, 1812 as a consequence of the Napoleonic Wars, in which Napoleon invaded the Papal States for the second time. The pontiff was held captive at Fontainebleau in the former Queen Mother's apartment, now the Pope's apartment. Pius VII was only released from his golden jail at Château de Fontainebleau on January 23, 1814, when France was invaded by the Allied powers and the empire was being shaken to its core. On March 30, 1814, Paris capitulated. Hearing the news on March 31st, Napoleon fled to Fontainebleau. On April 2, 1814, the Senate voted to depose Napoleon. On April 4th, confined in his apartment in Fontainebleau, Napoleon was forced to abdicate in favor of his son, the King of Rome. Then on April 6th, the emperor abdicated for a second time, this time renouncing the throne for himself and his family. On the night of April 12th, having lost everything, he tried to poison himself in his room at Fontainebleau, but failed. On April 20th, 1814, after a memorable descent of the horseshoe staircase in the lower court of the Palace of Fontainebleau, the abdicated emperor made his famous farewell speech to his old guard before being exiled to Elba. Napoleon said, "Soldiers of my old guard, I have come to bid you farewell. For 20 years you have accompanied me faithfully on the paths of honor and glory. With men like you, our cause was not lost, but the war would have dragged on interminably, and it would have been a civil war. So I am sacrificing our interests to those of our country. Do not lament my fate. If I have agreed to live on, it's to serve our glory. I wish to write the history of the great deeds we have done together. Farewell, my children." In the Treaty of Fontainebleau, the Allies exiled Napoleon to Elba, an island of 12,000 inhabitants in the Mediterranean, 10 kilometers off the Tuscan coast. They gave him sovereignty over the island and allowed him to retain the title of emperor. But his wife and son took refuge in Austria. Napoleon would only visit Fontainebleau once more on March 20th, 1815, returning from Elba during the 100 Days. Napoleon escaped from Elba in the brig Inconstant on February 26, 1815, with 700 men. 2 days later, he landed on the French mainland and started heading north. Napoleon arrived in Paris on March 20th and governed for a period now called the 100 Days. However, a French army under the command of Napoleon was defeated by 2 armies of the 7th Coalition in the Battle of Waterloo on Sunday, June 18, 1815, near Waterloo, United Kingdom of the Netherlands, now in Belgium, which marked the end of the Napoleonic Wars. Napoleon returned to Paris and found that both the legislature and the people had turned against him. He abdicated on June 22, 1815, in favor of his son. He was exiled to the island of St. Helena from October 1815. He spent his remaining days in British custody until he died in exile on the island of St. Helena on May 5, 1821, at the age of 51. The military career of Napoleon Bonaparte spanned over 20 years. Even though Napoleon's military career ended in defeat, nobody can deny that he had reached war-winning record by leading French armies in the French Revolutionary Wars and later as emperor in the Napoleonic Wars. Napoleon has been regarded as a military genius and one of the most exceptional commanders in history. His wars and campaigns have been studied at military schools worldwide. He fought more than 80 battles, of which he lost only 11, mostly towards the end when the French army was not as dominant. As an administrator, he reformed the French form of government and extended these to the empire. He was praised for his genius as a tactician and his leadership as a brilliant governor of an empire. At the same time, his story is of an ambitious military genius that drove him to go beyond the limits following years of wars and conflicts throughout Europe.
You say you're getting old, but what do you know about what's to come? 'Cause what the future holds, nobody knows till the race is all won. So if you're wondering what's the point of anything at all? It's to live your life, live it right now, 'cause you only get one. Before the dawn, it's always dark. Before the light, there is a tunnel. Before you run, you gotta stumble. When you fall in love, but it don't
I still have more to talk about Napoleon, his military campaigns, his legacy, his love story with Josephine, and his second wife, Empress Marie-Louise, and son Napoleon II. I hope I have another opportunity to show those to you in the near future. With that, I think it's time for me to say goodbye. I hope to see you again next week. If you have enjoyed it, please do give this video a thumbs up. I would very much appreciate it. Please subscribe if you want to see more of my weekly videos. Thanks so much for watching.